Good. Hello. I see we had technical problems with Teams. We tried to share our presentations, and what worked some minutes ago stopped to work. So I don't know. We have to send some kind regards to Microsoft and to Teams to make this more stable. After 5 years after Corona, I was hoping that everything is fine now, but you never know. So but on, and I wish you all a very good afternoon. I see many people which are quite familiar to me. I'm very happy that you joined our webinar as well, and many people joining from Europe, from other countries outside Europe, outside the European Union. A warm welcome to all of you as well. This is, I would say, the start of a series of webinars. And of course, if you start with something, you start with an overview. What is happening? And then we have the idea that over the next weeks and months, we go for some details. This is something from you later on or in the next days and weeks as well. What are the detailed topics you are interested in from our European legislation part, where we could experts. But first, the webinar is the umbrella of ISWA, the Internet Association. Next slide. Association. It's not a European association only. It's an international association concentrated on management. And the basic reason why I became a member of ISWA, I think over 25 years ago, is that you do not meet your own crowd. In the end, all the people that are working on municipal academics, public, private, consulting firms, EPR systems now. So everyone who has an interest, and so to the same from or with different views, I would say it's quite enlightening. And I learned a lot. And it's not only my background is packaging, so I know a lot about packaging, but there are so many other waste streams. And in the end, you learn that my very simple example, if you have a good bio-waste collection, you always have a much better quality of your packaging. And so it's always good to know the other fields as well. And this is what, if you go on, over 100 countries. So I think we are really representing the waste management all over the world. And of course, you have to work together. The platform, 10 working groups, which you can see here from all different topics, sometimes more classical, sometimes more horizontal, like climate change, and so on. So very, very interesting. If you are not a member of ISWA, I can only tell you that might be an interesting thing to consider, because it opens your mind to speak not only to the same people, but to many worlds. On. So you see, we are trying to see and understand the reality. It is not a desk office association. Like some people say from our associations in Brussels, we always leave there our desk and go to the reality and try to understand the real problems and the real solutions. Please go on. A little bit further until the start of the next presentation. So just to say that the landfill, open landfill dumps, illegal dump sites are a big topic for ISWA and our work. like the plastic treaty, the global treaty, where we try to help with real life practical details to help those countries, those stakeholders that are interested. So not lobbying in favor of something, but delivering the necessary information, technical tools and know-how so you can make the right decisions. But that's not the topic for today, but just to let you know who is organizing this. We are having today the topic of European legislation. And if you go to the next slide, you can see that waste legislation is quite big and quite a lot. Many different waste streams, all of them very specific, all of them needing experts to regulate. So all of them are needing experts in the lobby field to provide the politicians with the right information from their point of view, of course. So that's, I think, the big advantage that you have for every of you, minimum one association that can deliver their information so that in an optimum case, the petition in a way and can take the right conclusions from the information that they get. And especially last years, there was really a hurry in improving the legislation, making legislation more ambitious. As you can see here, a new legislation was discussed and adopted, and as you can see, 25, 26, this is still going on. So there's no pause. We cannot sit back and relax. It is really going on. Go on. Next slide. Oops. And especially for our field, the Waste Framework Directive, a directive which is somehow existing since 25, 30 years, has been improved and developed in a quite big way in 2018, together with the Packaging Waste Directive, setting new targets, introducing new recycling calculation methods, and so on, stricter rule, really trying to push member states, and of course not only member states, but the whole public and companies to jump a step further. As they noticed, this is not enough. The directives were revised again, 25, with a new waste framework directive now, and a new packaging waste regulation instead of a directive in 25 as well, making everything even more stricter to push us that we are going on more and more to a circular economy where we don't just consume and throw away, but we try to keep as much material in the circular economy. Whether this is easy possible or not, and how much is existing, I think you can discuss, you can question, but just, I think there's a common sense that just consume and throw away is not the way forward, because we don't have the resources on our earth to continue this path. So we have to change. Of course, best to change to consume in a more intelligent way. Do we need 20 t-shirts for €1 a year? Or would it be better to have one or two in a good quality? But this is something we cannot solve in the waste management, because we are somehow the victim and the profiteur, of course, as well, from what the people decide in the beginning of the circle. But we can help to keep it, to make this circle again, and that's our job. If you go on. Yeah, as I said, the Waste Framework Directive is the key legislation, the general legislation for all of us, especially for municipalities, because it is fixing minimum recycling targets, which are quite ambitious. 55% by this year. That's a lot. Some people say, "Oh, that does not sound a lot," but you have to take into account that the measurement point for recycling has been made as well. So a lot of losses are not anymore counted as recycled in the past. So not only increased by numbers, but only making it stricter. Also, bio-waste has to be separately collected all over Europe since 2 years now. As far as I know, even in Germany, we still have some white spots where it is not done. So all over Europe, I think we have to improve here. Same textiles, the new packaging disaster somehow, I say, because we have an explosion in textile waste, mainly from the so-called ultra fast fashion, where some textile companies are putting every week a new style on the market, and people buy it for cheap money. But what can we do then later on with all the textiles? It has to be separately collected now as well. And now they are starting to introduce extended producer responsibility to get the funding for it. I think it should have been the other way around. First the funding, then the obligation for separate collection. But okay, we see the results now in some countries which are very difficult. Member states still have to implement many of legislation, especially if it is a directive, but even with the regulation, they have to do, of course, a lot of implementation work. 20 months looks a lot. If you see the reality, how long it takes to make a draft in the ministry and get it approved in the parliament, it is yesterday. So, go on so that we are ending soon. My overview, yeah, just to show you the recycling rates. They are improving in general year by year in most of the areas. Packaging, you see a little drop, as I tried to explain. Inter alia, there was a change in the measurement point, so you can see that losses have to be deducted from the recycling performance, and then of course you have a little going down. But of course we have to recycle much more for packaging as well. Municipal waste around 50% in average, so more than 5% lower than what we need all over Europe to do. Electric waste, a sharp drop for whatever reason. We have to ask the colleagues there. But of course, it is a question whether it makes sense to have collection targets for electronic waste when the target is to use electronics longer. So there are some proposals to make the measurement of the work more smart. Let's see how this works. Going on. Yeah, that's the same, just with more details. I'm sure you can get the slides so that you can have a deeper look then later on, so that we do not need to go into deep details now. So going back to municipalities, I'm afraid that besides companies, they have to carry a lot of burden, because they have to implement, or sometimes I think probably Vanya will agree later on, they are forgotten a bit in the discussions sometimes, because they have to implement a separate collection. They have to convince the people partly to have 2, 3, 4 bins or 5 containers next to their door, or go to the recycling station and. So a lot what we ask municipalities, hopefully often with the support of industry, to do to convince their inhabitants in Cologne what the people in Brussels have decided. So they have to translate it in a smart way. And as you see, the targets are getting higher and higher. So we need more and more support from our inhabitants. Otherwise, everything does not work. We cannot sort everything just in front of an incinerator. I think that's not the easy way we can go. So the municipalities, the inhabitants, from my point of view, they play a crucial role and need all our support to make it happen. Go on. Yeah. And as I said, it's not only the waste Framework Directive and the Packaging Directive. We have, of course, the Landfill Directive, extremely important for many countries. Some countries have phased landfilling more or less out, so they are done. Germany, Austria, parts of Belgium, and so on. But in many other countries, there is still too much landfilling. But of course, it is cheap and easy today, causing only problems tomorrow. So I think we will have to put some more efforts in our work from the European Union to some of the countries as well. Waste shipments, it will be more and more difficult. And of course, it has to be more and more difficult to ship our waste, our secondary products, however you call it, to other countries outside the European Union, which might be fine if they are recycled or treated there in the same way as in the European Union. But I think it is common sense that we should not use it for cheap dumping. And as well, for every special waste stream, you have now a special directive with special obligations. The latest surprise to me, since I heard of it 1 or 2 years ago, the urban wastewater treatment the directive, where even their EPR was introduced, so that some products have to pay for a fourth cleaning stage for urban wastewater. Let's see how this will work, something interesting as well. But the message is there is no stop. Huh? If you go to the next slide, it goes on, it keeps us busy, and we are really asked to improve and to be faster than before to really solve many of the mess that is still existing in many parts of the European Union. And the latest big thing the Commission is working on is the so-called Circular Economy Act. But it will not be a normal legislation like the Waste Framework Directive, the Packaging Regulation, and so on. It will be a vehicle, they call it omnibus, where they will change many other existing legislation. So it will not stay separately. It will just change, improve, hopefully, many existing legislation like the Waste Framework Directive, the WE Directive, and. So that's also a chance for everybody of us. What could be easily improved and changed to make to get to the same or better results, but with less burden and so on. So there's therefore a consultation running until November where everybody is allowed to feed in their proposals. The latest consultation about another topic, another omnibus, just closed. I read that 115 or 120,000 inputs were given, over 100,000 in more or less the same way from, as it is said, the NGO part. Whether this is useful, I really have to question. Who can read 120,000 inputs? So you will minimum have to use artificial intelligence to read the input. Is this the right way forward? I would have preferred 500 grouped, agreed input from different associations, of course, giving the same value to the NGO side, to the municipal side, and so on. So whether to file as many inputs as possible is the best way forward. We will have to see the outcome now, and then perhaps we should evaluate how this procedure is done. Going to my last slide, and I'm already late, as always. I'm sorry, but you can see the journey is continuing. So there is no pause, no rest. Over the next years, new legislation is up, and improvement of existing legislation is up. But still, it is wonderful to have a piece of paper in front of you in Brussels. If you go to my last slide, if the situation is this, we have a problem. As you can see, it seems we have lost some countries. Will they ever fulfill in the next 10 years the existing legislation? It seems not. So I think, which is our part as well, all of us, we have to help many countries to improve. Otherwise, a lot by 5 or 6 countries, which is not the idea of the European Union. But going on, and I would like to pass the floor to our first real valuable speaker from the municipal side, as I talk about municipalities. Vanya Veras, you are running Municipal Waste Europe. So try to help all these municipalities and their associations to keep up with what is happening in Brussels. So please, the floor is yours, Vanya. I'm very happy to have you with us.
Thank you for inviting me, Joachim. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm just going to wait for Valeria to put my slides up, if that's okay. There we go. Okay, so I will try to stick to the 10 minutes. There's a lot of ground to cover. Joachim, thank you. You introduced some of the subjects already. The Municipal doing at Municipal Waste Europe, but Joachim is right. What we try to do is both assist municipalities to understand what the barriers are to implementation if they have encountered them, to share knowledge between our members, but also with other municipalities who are not yet members of Municipal Waste Europe, but also to bring examples of best practice to the European level and try to make sure that policy is adapted to enabling implementation and enabling progress towards the circular economy. So this is why we say that we try to bridge the gap between municipalities and the European Union. Next slide, please. So we're a non-profit European umbrella association representing public responsibility for municipal waste management, founded in 2009, based in Brussels, and our members are national associations of public waste management and their municipalities, but also directly municipalities, larger ones in general, or regions, or public waste management companies. We have 15 full members. Currently, we have 14 countries and 2 associated members. Next slide, please. Next, please. So we, in the last years, have undergone discussions to revise the Waste Framework Directive, but not entirely. The last full revision was in 2018. This current revision, which is complete all but its publication now, has only added 2 new sections, more than 2 articles, but 2 main issues. One is food waste prevention, and the other one is textiles. At Municipal Waste Europe, we focus more on waste management. We have less influence on prevention. So in this revision, we focused more on textiles. For the public waste operators, what is very important is that we now have an explicit recognition of local public authorities and public waste operators in the implementation of extended producer responsibility for textiles. Why is this important? When member states are asked to design the responsibilities and the structure of extended producer responsibility for textiles nationally for their member states, in other extended producer responsibility systems, and Joachim will be aware of this, it is only the producers around the table. Whereas in textiles, you need not only municipalities, but also social enterprises around the table, because these are the ones who are doing the separate collection, and they know what the challenges and opportunities are, and also how they need to communicate with the public to make sure that the textiles are indeed collected separately as much as possible. Volumes is a different question. I'm not going to go into volumes right now because that would extend my presentation. So the producer responsibility under EPR for textiles is to cover 80% of the costs of separate collection, but not only the cost of sorting, transport, preparation for use, and recycling. Member states can go further than this and require producers of textiles to cover partially or totally costs of collection and waste treatment for textiles which end up in the mixed waste bin. The principle there is that extended producer responsibility for any material, here we're only talking about textiles, includes anything they put on the market, regardless of whether it was collected separately and therefore is clearly in their line of waste command, or if it ends up in a mixed waste bag. If this responsibility is not upheld, it gives the producer a free ride. They are not responsible for the cost of their waste management in the mixed waste, and it is the consumer, the municipality and the consumer, who ends up paying for it. So this was very, very important to us, and it's in the new legislation, but it is not a blanket obligation. Member states must decide what they do. As Joachim already mentioned, this is backwards. The states already had the obligation since January this year, 2025, to collect textiles separately. The extended producer responsibility, which must pay for this, will only come into force, hopefully, in all member states, because this is also not a guarantee, 30 months after the official entry into force of the directive. This date, or the countdown, begins after publication and after when the directive comes into force. And we're currently awaiting publication. Next, please. The simplification tsunami, this is what we're calling it. It's one thing after another. Brussels, in this political mandate, is focusing on competitivity. This focus on competitivity is not wrong, but we run the risk of forgetting the long and detailed journey that we have been on for more than 30 years at the European Union to develop and implement environmental legislation that both protects our environment and human health and creates innovation so that we can produce in a cleaner way. Is how there is towards deregulation. And this is something that we do not agree with, because we took other aspects, other ways to increase our competitivity. Part of that is tying funding to implementation, and part of it is ensuring a stable legislative environment, which is absolutely necessary for investors, and tying that into for that will increase our competitivity, and it will increase also investment into innovations. Whether this is in the waste management with the eco-design regulation. So next, please. A slight aside, but it's important to look at the context that we're working in at the moment. So Municipal Waste Europe has responded to the 7th omnibus package, which was August. September. For those who don't the Commission intends in this Environment Omnibus to streamline extended producer responsibility schemes, possibly by creating a regulation that encompasses all EPR schemes for all waste streams, and possibly not. That is, that the other option that the Commission might do is simply to have a new regulation on EPR which looks at new waste streams which have not currently got an EPR scheme. They are looking to reduce reporting with regard to various aspects, but also the SCIP database, which is reporting on waste movements, and also to simplifying or speeding up the permitting procedure for waste management installations, but not only, also other installations. We're interested in the waste management, of course. Next slide, please. Bio-waste. Bio-waste is important, and in Municipal Waste Europe, we are focusing on it with our own campaign, because when we look at municipal solid waste, in all the countries that still landfill over 50%, and some of them over 70% still, and they don't have another type of waste management, such as waste to energy for the municipal waste, up to 70% of their waste for highly touristic areas is bio-waste. That bio-waste it's food waste. That food waste in a landfill generates methane, whereas it could be generating renewable energy, local jobs, and compost, or otherwise called nature-based soil improvers, combating desertification, compaction, and such like, and providing food security or a source of a pathway towards local food security. And this is important all around the world. If we look at the landfilling countries in Europe, we can compare these with the global south. Next slide, please. So this is the landing. The European Environment Agency in 2020, in their waste report, came up with the analysis that approximately an average of all European countries, 34% of municipal waste is food waste. But this varies very much between the north and the south. In the south, the minimum content is 40%. Next, please. So, Circular Economy Act, Joachim mentioned this already. In her State of the Union address, our European President, Ursula von der Leyen, declared that they are going to speed up the process of proposing the text of the Circular Economy Act 2026, Right now, we don't know when to expect it, but the consultation is out. Next slide, please. As Municipal Waste Europe, we will respond to the Circular Economy Act consultation, and it's important is being consulted upon there, because in the Circular Economy Act also be the preparation for the revision of the waste electrical and electronic directive, most likely to become a regulation. So we will in fact deliver 2 texts in response to this consultation, one on the General Circular Economy Act and another with a detailing on the WEEE directive. Including, do you want me to wrap up?
Yes, I have to ask you, sorry.
Okay. But yeah, that's it in the Circular Economy Act. And an important in there is that it will also address financing, which is a link which we have not had before in waste legislation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Small team. And when you say bio-waste, of course, this is a big topic in Israel as well, a topic around the world. And I saw Marco Ricci amongst the participants. He's minimum for me the bio-waste expert that I know. So there's a lot of expertise within ISWA as well. Going on now, your counterpart, I would say, from the private company area, Paolo Campanella. I'm very happy that you are with us as well from FEAD. I think your scope of FEAD is a little bit bigger, as far as I know, than Municipal Waste Europe. And so luckily your office and your team is a little bit bigger as well to deal with all the 100 million topics, but you promised to concentrate on a few hot topics for me as well. So the floor is yours, Paolo, please.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Joachim, for the invitation. Okay, so Valeria is sharing the slide. Thanks a lot. You can already go to the next one. I am Paolo Campanella. I am the Secretary General of FEAD. FEAD is the European Waste Management Association, and we represent 20 different national associations across Europe, including also UK and Norway, as you can see. And we cover the entire waste management value chain, starting from the collection, sorting, recycling, energy recovery, and disposal, and of any kind of waste, actually. So not only municipal waste, but also commercial and industrial waste, hazardous, non-hazardous, organic, inorganic. So the scope is really broad. And these really allow us to have a very holistic overview of the sector. And as Joachim was saying, we are really involved in the discussion of the European policies, considering that we counted, let's say, almost 50 different policy files that we are following. In the next slide, just to tell you that our objective is to advocate for a better regulatory framework for our sector, but in particular with the objective to strengthen the circular economy in Europe. A couple of years ago, we published our vision, a mid-term vision for 2030, also in view of the current mandate at European level. And according to the work that we have done internally, our vision is to shift Europe overall material use towards recycled material. And this is really important because we know that there's a specific indicator today, that is the circular material use rate, that is actually measuring the amount of recycled material that is used in the economy in Europe. And today we are at about 12% of the total material used in the European economy coming from the circular economy sector. So according to us, this rate should be increased as much as possible. Our objective, and we hope also that we are able to do it as a continent, to increase it and double it by 2030. And this is also part of the ambition of the European Commission. Of course, we do not have to forget that we are, it's true that we are providing secondary raw materials, we are providing energy, but we should, first of all, manage waste in a safe and environmentally responsible way. In the next slide, just to give you an overview, many things have been mentioned today, but in this current mandate, what will be, let's say, the guiding document for the coming years will be the Clean Industrial Deal. That is actually, let's say, the counterpart to the Green Deal that was actually adopted during the last mandate. It's a continuation, actually a development of the Green Deal, as was also mentioned by Vania, focusing on competitiveness, focusing on simplification. In the document, circularity is one of the strategic priorities of the European Commission and is also identified among the 6 key business drivers that will be the main part of the mandate, in order especially to reduce dependencies and to boost the resilience of the European continent. So within this pillar that has been actually proposed, the Circular Economy Act will be one of the main legislative files that will be probably adopted by 2026. The focus is to enable free movement of circular products, of secondary raw materials and waste across Europe, to promote supply and demand for high quality recyclates, and also with the objective to make it more economically feasible in order to lower the cost for the industries. It has been mentioned already earlier, but there will be a focus on in order to make the legislation simpler, and in particular with a focus on critical raw materials, because we know that as Europe, we are really weak on that specific point, and so building on the Critical Raw Material Act that was already adopted during the last mandate, is considered a very potential, highly potential waste flow to recover critical raw materials. There will be a discussion about end of waste, on the criteria, on the way to develop them, but also on the possibility to recognize the national end of waste criteria. A focus will be on EPR, and that's a request that is also coming from the producer side, but we believe that as waste managers, EPR can play an important role, and the way it is established is really important to drive circularity, and also green public procurement, because it's a key part of the demand side of the circular products. In the next slide, I would like really to tell you that according to us, there are really 4 main relevant legislation that are linked one to each other. and especially for the waste management sector, all of them will be very relevant. And we are asking everybody, and in particular the policymakers, to take them into account altogether when they take a decision, because we would like really to avoid that the institutions think in silos, but for the sector there is a strong link between all of them. The Circular Economy Act, as I said, the European trading system, there is going to be the revision, and I know that Ella from CEWEP is going to go a bit deeper into this point. The Public Procurement Directive revision, where, as I said, we believe that could be an important driver for the circular economy in Europe, and also the landfill BREF. That is actually the definition of the best available techniques for managing the landfills that will arrive in the definition of the BREF will be in the next 4-5 years, so a long-term legislation, but of course it will affect all the other circular economy policy. Since I have the last minutes, I would like to give you an overview of the priorities of FEAD regarding the next, the coming years and the current mandates. And for us, as I said, it's really important to boost demand for European recycled material. I'm saying European because today there is a threat that is coming from third countries on the provision of recycled material that is actually putting pressure to the European recycling industry. So it's really important that this is taken into account and that European made recycled material is taken into consideration. We need also to protect the definition of recycled content. We know that there are already recycled content targets in the current legislation, but we should try to add more, especially in the potential sectors, but protect the definition of recycled content. So excluding, first of all, the pre-consumer waste from the definition, but also excluding bio-based material from the definition of recycled content. That can have a different place, a different role to play. Create a competitive market for recyclates, because we know that today there is a huge competition between virgin and recycled material, in particular because recycled material do not account in their cost all their environmental externalities. Therefore, according to us, there should be a different economical measures to actually reduce this gap and favorize the recycled content. Strengthen the implementation and the enforcement. It's important because we know we have already very high and ambitious target. We don't need new ones, but we really need to enforce all of them and implement all of them as soon as possible. Should also create the condition for the waste management companies to work in a proper way. And today we are seeing more and more fire accidents coming from lithium batteries in the different waste management facilities in the entire value chain, and is one of the priority if we want to keep our sector alive, if we want to keep it economically feasible, and we should reduce the fire risk. We have some proposals to put in place, and we would be happy to discuss. And one of them is also linked to producer to the responsibility of this. And we know that the EPR scheme is coming, and we should and put a lot of attention. Finally, the last 2 points are related to the two lowest treatment of the waste hierarchy, that is energy recovery and landfilling. We should not forget about the role that waste to energy can play in the treatment of residual waste. So we have to focus that only for residual waste, and we should ensure that there is the capacity to do it and at a fair cost for the citizens, and also ensure proper rules for the future of landfills. So we should always aim at protecting environment and health in that sector, and all the work that will be done in the BREF, but also in the Circular Economy Act, because there will be discussion about landfills also there, should play an important role, but we should ensure that the operators can continue working, offering the service that is necessary to the society. That was my last slide. If you have any question, I'm open to answer. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thanks a lot, dear Paolo, for this overview. Many topics are on our priority list as well, so I think we will see us continuously, like with Vanya. And as you mentioned, waste to energy, I would propose that we go immediately now first to Ella, because connection with Monica. Ella, are you ready to rumble?
I'm ready, and it's true, it complements the presentations that have been made before. Yeah, so next slide, please. CEWEP is the European Umbrella Association, and we represent the owners and operators of waste-to-energy plants. When I refer to waste-to-energy, that's the thermal treatment of residual waste that cannot be recycled. And our members are both public and private operators. We represent almost 90 million tons annual treatment capacity in 434 plants in 24 countries. And in whole Europe, there are 100 million tons capacity for waste to energy in almost 500 plants. Next slide, please. So waste to energy sector is aligned with the key targets on the Green Industrial Deal. First, on competitiveness through circularity, of course, but also contributing to energy security because it produces reliable baseload energy, 24 hours, 7 days, at an affordable price. And we are convinced that the deal gets, or the support of the industry is should go via the proper implementation of the Green Deal. Implementation was mentioned a lot, and indeed we need to implement properly what we write on our legislation. And we should try to make it simple, but of course not compromising environmental issues and human health. And with regard to waste legislation, the aim to keep resources in the EU is also supported by us. And of course, the sector is committed to the decarbonization targets. I come back to this later in the EU ETS context. Next slide, please. The Circular Economy Act was mentioned. Here are the points which are, from our perspective, the most relevant ones. It is central for decarbonization and reducing Europe's dependencies, particularly on the energy level and raw materials. Then the focus on the market for secondary raw materials and waste. Of course, the measures to implement the landfill directive and to incentivize the diversion of waste that can be recycled or used for energy recovery should not go to landfill, but the landfill space should be kept for the non-recoverable waste. Then we need a harmonization of the definition of end of waste to boost the market, but again, not compromising environmental issues and human health. We support the aim of high quality recycling and simulation of a demand for secondary raw materials. And from the waste to energy perspective here, the bottom ash, the leftover from the incineration process, is relevant as it can contribute valuable raw materials via metal recycling, for instance. Next slide, please. In Europe, the bottom ash from waste to energy processes is about 19 million tons a year. And this contains more than 10% of metals, ferrous and non-ferrous metals. And via recycling of these metals, we can save more than 3 million tons of CO2 equivalent emissions. And the rest of the bottom ash, the mineral part, can be used for construction purposes. So also this recovery and recycling option should be considered in public procurement to make better use of it. Next slide, please. Yeah, that's the main topic for the sector. It's really the hot potato for waste to energy. Will municipal waste incineration be fully covered in the future EU ETS or not? Next slide, please. So we have to monitor the CO2 emissions already since January 2024. And as you probably all know, the European Commission is currently undertaking an impact assessment, which they should provide by end of July next year. And there they investigate inter alia if municipal waste incineration, but maybe also other waste management options should be covered under the future EU ETS. As from 2028, that's at the moment the indicated time frame. And the Commission recently, via their consultants, had a consultancy survey asking stakeholders about this question, if the waste sector and explicitly waste incineration should be covered by the EU ETS. Next slide, please. What is the sector's view about it? First of all, the sector is aware of the fossil CO2 emissions that it emits and wants to take responsibility for it. The fossil CO2 emissions from waste energy plants come mainly from the non-recyclable plastic waste. And this is an issue because the steering effect of the waste to energy operator to make plastic waste more recyclable, containing less fossil fuels, is very limited. So this is why the sector fears that while there is not much steering effect for the waste to energy sector to reduce the fossil CO2 emissions given by the input, the non-recyclable waste, the cost on the other hand will be very high, and we have to discuss how this should be bared. But first of all, the impact assessment should make a holistic approach and look at the impacts that it could have if waste to energy comes under the EU ETS, thus making it more expensive. What we must avoid is that this leads to a waste leakage rather than carbon leakage. In this case, it could be a waste leakage, meaning that as you know, waste always finds the cheapest way, so it could go maybe not very sustainable ways. It could go to waste treatment lower in the waste hierarchy. It could be exported into regions with lower environmental and social standards. And and if the treatment like landfilling under the lower in the waste hierarchy is cheaper, it could go to landfill. And as it was mentioned before, we have a lot of member states in the EU which still heavily rely on landfilling and don't have the capacity higher up the hierarchy to treat the waste. So this counterproductive impact, diverting waste into lower levels in the waste hierarchy, should be avoided. Talking about the costs, there will be higher social costs for municipalities, but also for the whole waste management chain, because the residues from recycling containing fossil materials will also have to go to waste to energy if they are not recyclable. Then this will also raise the cost for recyclers. Often it is said, yeah, make waste to energy more expensive, then recycling will grow. But we don't really see an empirical evidence for that. Also not in those countries who have waste to energy under the EU ETS. What we see is, for instance, in Sweden, which for several years has waste to energy under the EU ETS, that there is a kind of blacklisting. So waste containing a lot of fossil materials, which is costly due to the EU ETS, is sometimes blacklisted. So the waste to energy operators don't take this waste anymore or make it much more expensive. And then this waste disappears. And I don't know where it goes to because it is the non-recyclable part of the waste. Next slide, please. So should the waste sector and particularly waste to energy get a carbon pricing, then we recommend some things. First of all, we should really have the whole waste management sector and put it into perspective, not to achieve the counterproductive and not wanted impacts. Interlink the environmental and climate legislation. As said, landfill rates are still very high in some member states, and the EU landfill directive sets the target to have maximum landfilling of municipal waste 10% by 2035. And for some member states lagging very much behind, it's even 2040. So making it much more expensive, but the landfill targets will only bite 2035 or 2040 or even later because some member states are at high risk to not achieve these targets at all. Then there could be definitely a diversion towards landfilling, which is not in line with the current EU waste hierarchy. Another point to be considered is that multiple taxation of waste to energy should be avoided. Many member states have already incineration taxes in place. Some have additional CO2 taxes in place. If additionally the costs via EU ETS will rise, this will be a very high burden. And we should discuss who should pay the costs and how we can ensure the polluter pays principle. I mentioned already the residual waste which comes to the waste to energy plants is already the residue from sorting and recycling facilities. That's the part which cannot be properly recycled. But who has a steering effect to reduce the fossil emissions coming from this fossil residual waste? It is with the manufacturers who could, for instance, produce plastics and make them recyclable and use less fossil materials, or even earlier at the oil and gas industry, because they extract the oil or the fossils, which are used in plastic manufacturers, and they have the steering effect. They could try to leave more fossils in the ground. Of course, it's a matter of profit, but they will make again profit if we do CCS, carbon capture and storage, because then the captured CO2, for instance, from waste to energy plants, will go in undersea former geological space, which is operated by this industry again. So this is a proper discussion we should have in relation to the polluter pays principle. Who pays for the CO2 emissions from waste? One back, please. I'm ready then, no worries, but just to finish this one, thanks. Waste to energy does by substituting the use of fossil fuels in energy production. So producing heat and electricity and replacing the use of fossil fuels for that. And also via metal recycling, saving CO2 equivalent emissions, and helping to divert waste from landfills, which would otherwise emit methane, which is a very, very potent global greenhouse gas. And it was mentioned already by Vanya that the bio-waste contributes a lot to these methane emissions, which should be reduced. For the waste-to-energy sector, there's a lot of discussion. Okay, you cannot reduce, or you don't have such a steering effect on the input, because you have to take the non-recyclable waste as a sanitary task. But you could do carbon capture and then use it or store it. True, that can be done in the future, but there's still no business case. A lot of regulatory framework is necessary for that, to have some legal and planning security. And it's not a silver bullet, because you need some requirements for that, and be it just the physical requirement that you need space to build a carbon capture unit, which is not always. There are some waste-to-energy plants are a city center, just don't have space to install it. Then there's an energy penalty. You need energy for carbon capture, and you can then, for instance, deliver less heat to the district heating network, and so on. So there are some requirements which need to be fulfilled so that this can be a viable option. But indeed, it can be an option with CCS to achieve negative CO2 emissions. But what I want to emphasize, and that's my last conclusion, we have an immense potential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions via proper management of landfills and not landfilling the waste that can be recycled and recovered. And this is a really high potential, and we can achieve much, much more for the climate if we do this properly. Much more we can achieve with this, much more than with any investment in carbon capture and use or storage in waste-to-energy plants. And with this, I would like to finish. I have seen a question in the chat about laughing gas. If you want, I can answer it now or later, whatever you prefer.
Yes, please. If you have an idea, that would be great.
Yeah, the thing with the laughing gas is indeed that the sector, the whole waste sector, it's not just waste to energy, suffers from explosions from these laughing gas canisters, which are unfortunately often misused as a drug. And you find them in parks, on streets, you find them everywhere in many cities, not in all member states. It differs a lot, but particularly in Belgium, in the Netherlands, in Germany, in the UK, and a threat to the workers. And we talked with the Commission about that, and what they are doing is they work via REACH, and as from February 2027, it shall be not allowed to sell nitrous oxides or laughing gas canisters to private people. If this will solve the problem, I don't know, honestly, because what we have seen in some countries which suffer a lot from these laughing gas explosions is that once or even higher. It worked better with a deposit return system, because if, let's say, a youngster abuses this as a drug, it could be still an incentive for them to give it back, to get the money back. So the deposit return system might work better than just forbidding to the purchase to private. I can understand it to a certain point of view. They say if something is banned, you can make an EPR or a deposit return system on it, because then it's banned. So we have to see. They have chosen the ban, and let's see if it will be very efficient. I can tell you later.
Let's hope whether it has some effect. It's generation plants. I think continue to close eyes in front of the. Yeah, I think we have the pleasure to visit on the new plants where they try to capture carbon in Malmö, in Sweden. So that from SEWEP, I think is the name of the organization. That was very interesting, but I think it costs a lot of money. Yeah? So
Yes,
yeah, so it is not a cheap exercise. Thank you. Finally, going now to a specific waste stream, I have to ask you short and just highlight a few of our hot topics, but there are a lot of hot topics. So many of them have been somehow mentioned already because we share a lot of scope and remit with the other associations. So the floor is quickly yours so that we can somehow close not too late. Thank you. And please don't forget to send us your your hot topics so that we can better plan the future of this webinar series.
Thank you, Joachim. I will indeed try to be very short. So just one word regarding our members. As you see, we have 34 members from all over the world, not only in EU. And one of the key requirements for them is to be non-for-profit or non-for-profit distribution and run by industry, which we believe is a key feature. We see EPR as a services of general economic interest. So that's why we see transparency and non-profit as a key requirement regarding successful EPR. You can see quickly the members. Just a kind reminder how EPR relates with the circular economy. As you see, the producer responsibility organizations are in the circle, but as we already heard today, all different stakeholders are within this circle, so they are influenced by the work of the Extended Producer Responsibility Alliance organizations. In our case, of course, it's regarding packaging, but as you see, the producers, the consumers, the local authorities, everyone is in the circle, and everyone should take their responsibilities and do their job in the best way. I think already the legislation was mentioned, but just wanted to highlight that we were very happy to manage to convince the Commission to have these minimum requirements regarding EPR. We, of course, would have liked to see even more regarding transparency, but still to have this basis on the basis of which we can compare the different EPR systems. We believe that was a great success. So we think it is a very important part, and it was further developed in the package waste regulation. So here, as Joachim mentioned, I will just give you a tease to see what is coming with the packaging waste regulation that should be in force in August next year. The Commission, the legislators were very ambitious, so they tried to cover all possible issues regarding management of packaging waste. And of course, as you all know here, this is not an easy task. There are many aspects, there are many interrelations, there are many impacts that it's very difficult to really assess in the best way. You can see here on this slide that they touched recyclability, so making recyclability as a market condition. So after 2030, no packaging that is not recyclable can be put on the market. There were minimum recycled content in plastic packaging requirements, also requirements regarding compostable packaging, regarding minimization, regarding reusable packaging and targets for usable packaging, as well as trying to harmonize the labeling both on products and collection containers. Again, as you see, there are a lot of different measures introduced in the packaging regulation that I believe, as is always often mentioned, that it will be quite a game changer, not only for the EP organizations, but also for industry, as well as for the other stakeholders that were shown on the first slide with the circle. The packaging regulation implementation indeed would be quite challenging. We can start first with the date. August 12, because basically, as you can imagine, with the changes of some definitions, for example, definition of producer, there will be some changes regarding also registration of producers. So basically, making the change in the middle of the year, you can imagine how complex that will be for the industry, for the EP organizations, for everyone that is responsible for reporting, because you have to change the system in the middle of the year, not to mention about IT experts, etc. So this is already with the beginning, we can start with one of the issues that we saw and that we think should be improved in the forthcoming omnibus. You see that there are a lot of sub-legislation coming from the regulation. And of course, these are of key importance because basically if you have target, if you don't know how to measure the target, obviously that will be not easy. So obviously it's very important for the Commission to keep in line with the deadlines for the implementing or delegated acts, as well as the some implementation clarifications and guidances, because basically without those sub-legislation, it will be very difficult to implement the regulation. You can see here, I will not go into details, but you can see how this sub-legislation is due, what are the deadlines after the application, of course, of the packaging and packaging waste regulation. Again, as mentioned, covering all possible issues, also digital marking, also export from third countries, so online sales. A lot of issues that, as Joachim mentioned, we can each of the presenters today can speak like full day. And the key measures that we believe impact EPR and industry, of course, are the recyclability requirements, the prevention and reuse targets, of course, the recycled content targets, and the additional requirements regarding EPR and labeling. Just to give you a flavor, regarding extended producer responsibility, there will be updated the requirements regarding reporting, harmonizing of the reporting formats, as well as some additional obligations in addition to Article 8A that I showed in the beginning. Of course, there are some additional rules regarding online sales in line with the Digital Services Act and the so-called authorized representative regarding third country sales. I will not go to details, just to mention that there are additional EPR costs that are added on top of the one specified in the Waste Framework Directive. I think Vanya also mentioned some of those. So basically cost of labeling of waste receptacles and cost of carrying compositional and surveys and analysis of the collected mixed waste. Regarding the producer responsibility organizations, additional topics that I would like to highlight are, again, a bit more transparency. So making publicly available on the websites of the PROs, the attainment of the targets, the ownership, the financial contributions, and the quantity of packaging made available on the market. And I would like to finish very quickly with my last slide. I hope I managed, Joachim, within the timeline. I would like to finish with this because this is kind of intersection between all different stakeholders. So it's the member state, the producers, the PROs, the municipalities, and the citizens, because it's very important. As already mentioned, the consumers or the citizens are the key in this circle. And if they don't do the right thing, of course, we will go into enormous quantities of uncollected and unrecycled waste. So basically, this is a very ambitious target of the packaging regulation to harmonize the labels. This effort was based on the Nordic countries' experiences, and the idea is to make easier for each EU citizen, wherever he goes or she goes, to be able to sort their waste in the right way. So basically, this was my short presentation. I hope I left time for questions. And of course, expert team with Joachim and Valeria, we are at your disposal to provide more information. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, dear Monica, and so sorry for the time pressure. Perhaps we can just answer one question which popped up several times, a question to Ella. Zero waste, then we don't need incineration anymore. When do you think this could be reached, or is it a dream? Or I think your members and so on, they are thinking about it before doing a new investment, huh? Because to build something if there is no input anymore would be stupid. So I think you have some ideas about the answer.
I think in a perfect waste, we wouldn't need incineration. That's true. But we are not in a perfect world, and therefore we still use substances of concern, which sometimes are even not allowed to be recycled. Not with environment and harming human health. And for recycling, if you take the materials degrade after several times of recycling, like paper and plastic, after some times of recycling, unless it's metals, they can be recycled forever, and we recycle metals as well. But some other materials just degrade after several cycles of recycling. And then you cannot produce a product anymore which you can put on the market and which fulfills any requirements of the recycling market. So for these kind of wastes, there will be a need in the foreseeable future. But of course, I agree, with future capacity planning, we have to take into account ambitious waste prevention and recycling targets. Absolutely. But there will be still some residual waste remaining, which needs proper thermal treatment and reliable treatment as well, so that we don't have low standard treatment or even illegal treatment.
Yeah. I would fully agree. Yeah? Let's try to run faster towards less waste, but up to then we need a reliable treatment plan, because otherwise the situation would be worse. I think it's the same with EPR. In an optimum world, you would not need because the material would be so high that it is financing itself. But until then, you need us, unfortunately. Yeah. So it's a little bit a similar situation. I would say so. We should all try to make us unnecessary in the future. And for this, if you talk to your kids or to other young people, please tell them there is a big need for environmental engineers, legal people, and whatever. So please, they should study these fields, because for all our ambitious things, we need the next generation to solve our mess. So that's what I tell the young people as well. Please go into this field and help us to solve it. This is very important because we need new people. You see, I'm already old, so that's why we need the next and the over next generation. Thanks a lot. I think we have to stop here. We are already over time. We will try to share the slides for all interested people. Please remind us if there is a problem, and we will follow this up with more specific topics, less time for discussion in the future. This is something we learned. We have to adapt everything. But I think for the start, it was very important to get this overview with our great speakers. So thanks a lot again. I'm sure we will see us soon again within ISWA, within Brussels, wherever you go. Perhaps some of us will go to Buenos Aires next month for the next World Congress. This is always a great exercise, a great event. I can only remind and recommend it to all of you to join us there. Otherwise, in Brussels, enough interesting conferences as well. So thanks a lot to all of you. See you. Send me your proposals for the very specific topics, European topics we should discuss in the next series. And thanks a lot for joining. All the best to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.